Cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining tonight. Really excited. We have a great webinar queued up here and Pam presenting. So for those of you that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, hello, my name's Emma Coleman. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Sierra Club Iowa Beyond Coal campaign organizer based here in Des Moines. And I work closely with Pam and the chapter on energy issues across Iowa, advocating to move Iowa towards clean, renewable energy by 2030. So we teamed up for this webinar series. We did one last winter that was pretty popular and excited to be doing it again as a way to connect while we're all bundled up. I know a lot of us got a lot of snow in the last couple of days. So this is a cool way to stay connected and informed. So thank you so much to Pam for presenting this evening. Here is our agenda for the webinar. Just starting out with some intros, and I will let Pam take it away.
Okay, thank you. I'm Pam Mackey-Taylor. I'm the Iowa Chapter Director, and I also work at the Capitol as a lobbyist for the Sierra Club. I've been the Chapter Director since 2018, and for most of that time have been doing the lobbyist role as well. So let's go ahead and get started with the next slide, which talks about how a bill becomes a law. And things will vary a little bit, but in general, legislators, the governor, and the government agencies can submit bills. You and I, as private citizens, cannot submit a bill. We have to ask our legislators to do that for us. Now, there are two chambers in Iowa, the House and the Senate. The House has 66 Republicans and 33 Democrats, and there's one open seat. And the Senate has 34 Republicans and 16 Democrats. And the governor is also Republican, so it's a trifecta Republican. So a bill can start in either the House or the Senate, or they can start simultaneously. And in all cases, a bill has to run through each chamber. It has to go through a House and a Senate subcommittee, a House and a Senate committee, and then the full House and the full Senate has to approve a bill before it can be sent to the governor's desk. And then once it goes to the governor can sign a bill, can veto an entire bill, and in the case of appropriations bills, that is the allocation of money for the government functions, there is a line item veto. That is the only case that a line item veto is appropriate. So basically, it's either up or down, or an appropriation bill, there can be some changes by the governor. So the legislative session has been in session since January 13th, and that starts the session for 2 years. So we go through a session, pass bills, and then we take a break, and then we start the next session. So the sessions last for 2 years. The first funnel is March 7th. What happens between January 13th and March 7th is that the legislators submit their bills, and then they go through a winnowing process. And by March 7th, most bills have to be through a subcommittee and a committee. And if they have done that, then they can go on to the next level. If not, then they're pretty much funneled out for this first year's session. Then there's a second funnel that happens on April 4th. And for a bill to move forward after April 4th, it must have passed through the House and a Senate committee, or it has to go through the Senate and a House committee. So you'll see the bills just start narrowing down and narrowing down. And then at the very end, it's May 2nd, the per diem runs out. That's expense money that legislators get every day. And while they're in session, it pays for food and lodging. And once that per diem runs out, that kind of is the signal that it's time to start ending the session. So the session ends somewhere around May 2nd this year. Now, on the next slide, we're going to start talking about some of the bills that are coming before the legislature this year. A big one that we've been working on the last couple of weeks is the governor's energy bill. We have some concerns about this bill. So there is a process called integrated resource planning, which the bill would force the utilities, this would be Mid-American and Alliant, to do every 5 years. It doesn't allow public comment. It doesn't allow contested cases where you can go to the Utilities Commission and challenge what the utilities are doing. And it has a 5-year window between plans, and we think that is twice as long as it should be. The second part of this energy bill is the right of first refusal for transmission lines. What that would do is take the existing transmission companies working in Iowa and giving them priority on building new transmission lines. That may not result in the least cost to the customers. And so we're concerned about that, and actually we do not support the right of first refusal. We also oppose the increased use of anaerobic digesters. And those are a process of taking manure out of confinement operations and open feedlots, running them through this process where the methane is captured, and it leaves behind digestate, which is even richer in nutrients and adds to the water problems we've been having in the state. And furthermore, we oppose putting nuclear power plants in Iowa. Nuclear power isn't clean. There's no way of dealing with the waste in a long-term basis, and the waste is radioactive for tens of thousands of years. And so we think that it's better to go with renewable energy, wind and solar, and storage that has been very effective in Iowa. So we're asking our state representative to oppose HSB 123 and the state senator to oppose SSB 1112. And with that, I'm moving on to the next bill, which is REAP. That's called the Resource Enhancement and Protection Act. Now, REAP is the framework for funding Iowa's natural resources, the parks and recreation areas, soil conservation, water quality, and our historical and cultural sites. Now, there's a funding formula that's set up in REAP, and the first $350,000 goes on conservation education. And then there's some money spent for administration, but most of the money goes to open spaces, city parks, soil and water enhancement, county conservation. Almost every county has some significant money that they've spent on parks and recreation funded by REAP. Public land management, historical resources, and roadside vegetation. The legislature has indicated that REAP can be funded at $20 million annually. However, the legislature usually reduces that significantly, and lately it's been $12 million. REAP is set to expire in 2026. We would like to see it expanded, and so we want you to ask your legislators to support extending REAP beyond 2026 and to fully fund it at $20 million so that we can fund our parks and recreation, our soil and water enhancement, and the historical resources that have traditionally been funded. Now I'm moving on to the next bill, which is protecting black bears. Now, HF 195 is the bill number. It's in the House, and it designates the black bear as a fur bearer. Initially, the black bear would be subjected to a closed season. And then once the population expands, a sustainable hunting season can be established by the Natural Resources Commission. And that's part of the Department of Natural Resources. And if a person is caught with a bear outside of the hunting season, then they can be fined $2,500, and the animal parts, the meat, the hide, can be seized. And we support this bill. Every so often, a bear will wander into Iowa, usually from Wisconsin, maybe Minnesota, and oftentimes they get killed right away. But they were native to Iowa, and we think that they should be allowed to repopulate the state. So ask your state representative to support HF 195. Now, last year, this bill made it through the House and didn't get it through the Senate. So we're hoping that it can do the same and actually get through the Senate this year. So we hope that HF 195 can be passed by the Iowa House and get the ball rolling. Now, the next bills that I'm going to talk about deal with the property taxes on forest reservations. Currently, landowners that have a forest reservation are given a property tax exemption. Now, these are woodlands. They have to be at least 2 acres and have no less than 200 trees per acre. And there's also an exemption for fruit tree reservations, and fruit trees are like apples and pears and nuts. And these 3 bills that I'm going to talk about would alter the property tax exemption on forest reservations and begin assessing property taxes on the land. We think that it's good to incent landowners to keep their forests. They provide beauty to the state, they cleanse our air, they keep our water clean, they hold soil in place for those highly erodible lands, and they're great benefits for wildlife habitat. So we are asking our state senators to oppose SF 219 and SF 17, and our state representative to oppose HF 142. And it's significant that HF 142 would completely get rid of the forest reservation in 2031. And so we're really concerned about that. And with that, I'm moving on to the next topic, which is shielding pesticide manufacturers from lawsuits. So there are several pesticide companies in Iowa that would like to reduce their financial exposure in case they get sued by parties that claim they've been harmed by pesticides. And the main pesticides we're talking about are Roundup and Paraquat. This bill states that if a label has been approved by a government agency, that is sufficient warning to the users of the pesticide, and it's basically a statement that the pesticide is safe to use. And it grants immunity from liability to pesticide manufacturer against any lawsuit claiming that a person exposed to the pesticide was not warned and was harmed by that pesticide. Now, that undercuts the right of people to go to the courthouse and try to get justice under our legal system, where juries make the decision on liabilities based on evidence. If the evidence shows that the label gives an accurate assessment of the dangers, then the jury will find the manufacturer isn't liable. On the other hand, if the jury finds that the label didn't adequately warn about the injuries, the jury will compensate the person who is suing. And it isn't just farmers that are affected. It could be bystanders. If you've got a property that's next door where they're spraying these pesticides, you might not have read the label, and therefore you don't want to be shut out of being able to go to the courthouse and get justice. So we believe the courthouse steps should remain open. There's no reason to pass this law, and we would ask you to have your state senator oppose SSB 1051. Now, for many years, for about 4 years, we've been working on carbon dioxide pipelines. And there's a bill that would reform eminent domain law. Landowners across the state are alarmed about the potential for eminent domain being used to site hazardous liquid pipelines in their property. And it's obvious we need to make changes. And so we're asking our state senator to support SF 92, restricting the use of eminent domain on agricultural land in the siting of a carbon dioxide pipeline. Now, some of these pipelines are a matter of a few hundred feet from houses. And they might be on a neighbor's property, and you may be only a few hundred feet from a pipeline on your own property. And so it's important to make sure that the eminent domain protects agricultural land. The other thing that happens when pipelines are constructed is that they stir up the soil and years later, that soil productivity is lost. And so we believe that landowners need to be protected from eminent domain. So we're asking state senators to support SF 92. Now, we've gone through quite a few bills this evening, and you may say, well, what can I do? Well, contacting your legislators is important. And even if you think they will not vote for what you're interested in, you still need to contact them. Our opponents are contacting them all the time, and you should also. So on this slide, I have laid out the contact information for the state senators. And actually, you can contact all the senators if you want. And there's contact information for the state representative. And if you don't know who your legislator is, there is even an option where you can go to find your legislator by putting in your address, and it'll pop up who your state senator and state representative are. And with that, Emma is going to talk about some resources that can help support you in your legislative advocacy.
Wow, Pam, you breezed through that. That's awesome. Thank you. Quick reminder, if you do have questions, you can put them in the Q&A or the chat. But yeah, some resources to support you. The chapter blog is being constantly updated by Pam and Jess. Sometimes we have some Beyond Coal blogs on there as well. You can check that out on the chapter website. And there's also the legislative chapter. Pam keeps a pretty updated list of the bill tracker, so you can see what legislation that we are monitoring and what we're supporting or opposed to or undecided and just monitoring. And things move quickly, so it's a cool way to stay up to speed. Lunch and Learns every Friday. Oh, and Pam just dropped the bill tracker link in the chat. Thanks, Pam. Lunch and Learns with Pam and Jess every Friday on the Sierra Club Iowa chapter Facebook page are available every Friday at noon. They have one tomorrow at noon. I think Pam said you'll be discussing pipelines on that one tomorrow. Really good, quick way to stay up to speed on what's happening week by week. Then there's the legislative email list. You can subscribe to receive updates and action alerts about environmental legislation. Pam is dropping these links in the chat now as well. Or are those coming through for everyone? That might just go to hosts and panelists. Let me, 1 second. Oops. Not letting me copy that. Pam, if you reselect so that it goes to everyone, that way it'll pop in the chat. Might have to
Okay,
copy and paste
all right.
those. For some reason, it's not letting me copy and paste. So yeah, we will drop those links in the chat. And I saw one question come through that I'm just going to address right now. We are going to put this slideshow in PDF form and send it out in an email for everybody to be able to review. My goal is to do that by tomorrow because these things are time sensitive. So you can click through those bills and contact your representatives. Oh, I'm gonna have to send it. Okay. All right, let me get those links in the chat for everyone really quick. And then yeah, let me see. We do this last slide really quick. So wow, this is so annoying. It won't let me copy it. It's just like making an error sound. Okay, well, here are some ways you can get involved. Maybe if I make you a co-host, Pam. All right, we had these links all prepared, everyone. We were like, our game plan. Uh, Technological curveballs all the time. All right, cool, you got access. Cool, thank you. So Pam will drop in those links for, oops, the legislative tracker. There we go. And then the legislative email list that you can sign up for. And then there's a form if you want to get like even more involved, if you maybe want to learn more about contacting representatives or just like different ways you can engage. You can tell us how, like, what issues mean the most to you and what tools or skills that you have or want to improve on this form. And we can figure out different ways for you to plug in. Um, we realize that like our membership is all across the state, which is awesome. So showing up at the Capitol isn't necessarily realistic for everyone. If you would like to come, there is an environmental advocacy day hosted by the Iowa Environmental Council next Wednesday. I will be there tabling from 12:30 till 4 p.m. in the rotunda. Pam might pop in as she's available to, but there's lots going on at the Statehouse right now. So I will be there. I will have different fact sheets, and this is a photo from Environmental Advocacy Day. Gosh, I think it was 2021. No, it was 2020. This was right when COVID hit. This was like the days leading up to the pandemic. This was like the last time I shook somebody's hand for a while. It was the first time somebody like elbow bumped me too. So, we will be back there, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's a great way to network with other environmental orgs. And yeah, it's just cool to see things going down. Not all the things are cool up there, but this day is a cool one. Let me check one more question. Um, yes, we will. Okay, so yeah. Um, yeah, you can sign up for those lists at the links that Pam put in the chat. Um, and yeah, I think that's all we have, unless there's like specific questions on the other bills. I'm going to click back through them for folks just to see if you hopped on late, we have this is like a super helpful, simplified way of how this works, how the legislative session works. Legislative calendar. So yeah, we're in that first funnel or approaching that first funnel. Energy bill is huge with our team with Beyond Coal right now. We are tracking this one very closely. I guess I put this in the chat, but I want to say now, like the integrated resource planning part of it is super important. We currently do not have an integrated resource plan. We commonly refer to these as IRPs. We are one of, I think, 5 states that doesn't have one in the country. Um, Most integrated resource plans do allow public comments and just different ways for the public to interact. The way it's set up currently, there's like really no public input on energy issues, and we pretty much have like we have monopolies that are our energy utilities. So not cool that we don't have public input opportunities currently.
And the big thing with integrated resource planning is it forces the utility to look out several years, say, what do we have for generation? What do we think we're going to need for generation? And how do we best make that generation available? So it could mean adding more solar, adding more wind, adding more storage. And it could also be a way of planning for shutting down coal plants. And so this is a very, very important feature. And we think it's really key that utilities need to be thinking. Our load is expected to grow in a number of areas because we're getting a lot of data centers. They take a lot of power, and we're getting some more manufacturing. So we need to make sure that we are staying on top of our electricity needs and that we've got that planning in place.
Yes, thank you, Pam. And this also makes it so that utilities have to do this in a transparent way, because the way they're operating right now is the opposite of that. It's very all behind closed doors. Again, no public input opportunities. So we really want to advocate for more transparency in this process. Um, yeah, we're a little behind the times in that one.
And the transmission line is interesting also because we have a need for more transmission lines in Iowa. And as we build out more solar and more wind, we clearly need to make sure that the transmission lines are in place so that that energy can be sent to the places where it's needed. Right of first refusal would allow existing utility companies and their contracted transmission builders to have an opportunity to build those lines first. It shuts out anybody else from coming in. So there are other companies in the country that could easily build transmission lines. And we believe that they should have a right to bid on those projects. It'll make those projects more cost effective, which affects the rates that you and I have to pay for our own electricity. And so that's why we do not support right of first refusal.
Yes, transmission is huge to our the energy infrastructure and the transition to clean energy. We really need to have um, a vast and responsible build out of it as quickly as possible. Okay. Pam, did you have anything else you wanted to say on this one?
No, I don't. Someone has asked if we could make the slideshow available online. We are going to be posting this on YouTube.
Yes. We will have the recording of the webinar on the chapter's YouTube channel, as well as I'll save a PDF of these slides and do a follow-up email with the slide deck and all of the links so that you can reference them as you contact your state representatives. Okay, yeah, I guess I really just wanted to talk more about that energy bill. There's been a lot of buzz about it in the last week. It's been really intense to follow. Shout out to Pam for sifting through it and our partners. It's, yeah, it's a big one. Anything else you wanted to say on REAP?
No, but I think as the budgets are getting tighter, uh, there will be continued pressure on our parks and recreation areas. Right now, the governor is looking at having to use $700 million that's in our reserves because our tax receipts aren't keeping up with the need of the budget. And so every time that happens, things like parks and recreation take a hit in terms of how much money we can spend on them. So it's really important to make sure your legislators know that you really believe that parks and recreation, open spaces, soil and water protection are important and REAP should be funded fully.
Yes, that's huge as well. We are one of the most biologically altered states in the country. We have pretty minimal parks as it is, and I know I love and value them dearly. Um, we have a lot of area groups that are blessed to be close to them. So we need all the investment in them that we can get. All right. Well, unless there's any other questions or Pam, you had any last thoughts? I think we can wrap up early. Uh, I want to say thank you again. Thank you, Pam, so much for doing all of this hard work. I know it's not always fun to be up at the Capitol. It can be it's an intense time of year, and you travel to do that as well. So thank you for your time and commitment to that and for presenting to us tonight. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I really appreciate you tuning in for this webinar this evening. I know the world feels pretty heavy right now, and so I always appreciate being able to share space with like-minded people and continue to fight for what we love and explore, enjoy, and protect. Our Sierra Club motto. Um, so yeah, thanks again. Please feel free to reach out. Our emails are at the bottom there if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to either of us. We are here for them. Cool. Thanks, everyone. We are having another webinar next on March, oh gosh, March 13th. Second Thursday next month, we will be having another webinar. So stay tuned to your email for updates on that. All right, stay warm. Have a good night, everyone.